as you see, we're doing something a little bit different today. For those that follow me on the Instagram and Facebook page, y'all know that I've been changing up the office and doing some redecoration here in the back, and ended up with a new and larger table. So what we're going to hope to do here in the near future is to actually do more of a face-to-face review system instead of just seeing my hands touch stuff, that overhead view. So let me know what you think, how you like the new setup, if I need to kind of change anything or maybe a different camera angle. We're playing with stuff. So with that being said, we've got a new pistol, and we're going to talk a little bit of brief history, some interesting facts, and just kind of do a little dive into it. Well, let's get into it. Okay, well, as you guys can see, this here is something a little bit different. It's more into the subgun or very large pistol category. This happens to be a Steyr Spp. If you're familiar with these, there's a couple different companies that make different variations, and we're going to kind of talk about those and go over this one here. So on this one, this is a SPP version, which stands for Special Purpose Pistol. The predecessor to this was actually the full auto version, which was called the TMP for Tactical Machine Pistol. A few key differences in that Steyr model, which was the very first, was it actually had a forward hand grip that came out at the bottom here where the serial number is on this one. And it was most notably a full auto 9mm. So with this one being the civilian version, this is actually the second model of this line of pistol from Steyr, being the SPP, which was semi-auto, did not come with that forward handrail, and that's really about it. The TMP did have the option of using what we would now know as a brace system, or actually having a small pistol stock. If you're familiar with like the old 1911s, they kind of had this real funky wooden stock or plastic. Glock did one for their pistol, which was kind of it went into the bottom of the handle and made it into the rear of the polymer. They didn't really work. They were more prototypes. So there's not too many variants of those out there in the TMP version. Getting into this gun, like I stated, it is a 9mm. It is classified as a subgun, so this gets into the world of like your AR pistols of today, or your CZ Scorpions, or a Mac. More than anything, this gets into the Uzi and Mac 10, Mac 11 era and style of pistols. Particular gun is a polymer casing. It is a polymer lower. The top cover or dust cover is all polymer, and then it has all steel internals. A couple key features on this pistol is it actually has a rotating barrel to bolt assembly, which I'll show you guys here in a minute. And after that, some of the key features of it is it's really based and designed at the time that the Steyr M model pistol had came out in the late 90s and into the early 2000s. So this pistol, the original design was from about 1986. They went into fielding and actual military use about 1987, 1988. Steyr ran this pistol and actually produced them all the way up till 2001. In 2001, a company called B&T, which actually produces a variant of this today, started importing and selling them through DSA. A key difference in that particular model to the Steyr, if you're ever looking or come across one of these, because most everybody confuses and thinks that the B&T is the Steyr and not vice versa. Big key difference between what the B&T and their model number will be the TP9 and the Steyr SPP will be in this top dust cover. Steyr has a proprietary rail system. This is very similar to the same rail system that was on the M model pistol, the very first generation. The B&T actually has a 1913 Picatinny rail, and the biggest difference is it has the ability to actually have that forward support hand, actual forward grip handle. The later versions actually have the option of turning the pistol into an SBR, or actually using a brace system onto the back of it. So that's a little history, kind of an idea for where this pistol is at. Going into the magazines, they are all polymer, minus that your spring and butt receiver plate are a stamped steel, but the rest of the magazine is polymer. A HK design top feed, like a full auto mag. So these mags actually interchange between the original Steyr TPM, the SPP, the TP9, and I believe there's also an HK submachine gun that actually runs these mags. It's a top load. This one is a 30 round. They come in 5-round increments from a 10 round all the way to the 30. So the construction on them, they're just a really heavy base polymer, no different than the actual frame of the gun. There's not really a whole lot to get into. It does have a single-sided magazine release, so this particular one is not ambidextrous. Getting into it, on the rear of the gun, it actually has a charging system very similar to an AR. So when you actually get into it, you just reach back, pull, and you can release it. It does have on the left-hand side here a bolt hold open. It will lock on the last round. Run that forward. The charge handle is non-reciprocating, so once you've actually charged it and start to run an operation, you don't have to worry about it moving, it locks in. There's that. Speaking on the ergonomics of this pistol, kind of the design feature, like I stated about the Steyr M model pistol, if you actually look here at the bottom of the grip, you'll notice that the ergonomics, the texturing, just the general shape is very, very close to a M model pistol, and even the trigger guard and trigger shoe assembly are super close, let alone it uses the same mag release button, and it also takes from the Steyr AUG the cross bolt safety, and it has the same setup. Going into the operation on this is just a delayed blowback. It's just a mechanical driven gun. There's no really special operation of the way the internals work. What is interesting is the actual rotating barrel to bolt assembly. That's kind of the fancy thing to this. Looking here at the front of the pistol, you'll actually see that this looks to be the barrel. It is actually not. This is a shroud that covers the barrel. The barrel floats inside. The actual barrel on this is only about 3.8 inches to 4 inches, depending on where you want to measure, if you measure from the lands and the grooves, or if you measure from the breech. The barrel actually stops just here at the front of the polymer. This here is actually more of a flash hider or dust cover. So I'll show you what that looks like, but just to kind of give you a reference point, if you were to take your little finger and insert it all the way up here through the barrel, you cannot touch the actual barrel with your finger all the way inside. So to give you an idea of me reaching through, like, you still cannot touch the barrel. So it's just behind this point here of where the actual rifling in the barrel rides inside the shroud. Well, to take this SPP apart, we'll go ahead and we'll drop the slide. You can go ahead and depress the trigger. Make sure the safety, here we go, we'll depress it. On the very front of the pistol, you're going to notice there are 2 tabs, very similar to a Glock style takedown levers. You're going to end up depressing this, and when you do run these down, you're going to hear the internal of the bolt be pushed forward into the rotating of the barrel assembly, and it'll make a small clunk. Once you've gotten that down, that's actually released the bolt carrier and barrel assembly, because they kind of mate together here inside. It's not a Browning action, so that releases it. The next thing to do is on the back of the pistol, which looks to be a loaded chamber indicator or the firing pin indicator. This isn't. This here is actually your guide rod assembly. So you'll go ahead and push this in and lift up slightly on the top dust cover. You only need to take it up about a 1/4 inch just so a little of the pressure comes off. You'll start to see the case open up. And then back at the front, right here in front of the sight and right above this flash hider, you'll actually see a metal flat plate, and it actually has the word up inscribed into it. That will actually be the release to pull the whole fire control group, the barrel assembly, all from the lower. So we'll go ahead and push this in, and you slightly pull up and then start to separate, and then you'll have your two halves. Going into the lower, you'll actually see these are the front two lugs that hold all of the internals together. The rest of the system is really no different from any other of the Steyr line pistols. It kind of has this chassis, and granted, this is right before Steyr patented and came up with a full, fire controller group chassis system. So this is kind of the precursor to it. You can actually see here the hammer is located. We'll lock that away just to show you guys. The inside of this is built extremely well. I mean, it's all stamped steel parts or folded steel. The internals for your trigger system, your trigger bar, your drop safety are very, very similar. If you've ever pulled down a Steyr pistol and looked inside, they're just oversized tremendously for the length of pull and to go into this chassis. Your standard left-hand side slide lock, it is non-ambi. Your mag release is not ambi. It's really just designed as a right-handed shooter. I'm sure left-handed people can shoot it. It would definitely take me getting used to actually manipulating the pistol that way. So, but there's your lower. We'll set that off to the side. Now, going into the upper assembly, the easiest way to take the barrel and the bolt assembly out with your recoil spring, the very front up here, just below the front sight, is an actual indentation circle mark, and that actually has a pin on this flash hider. So the easiest thing to do is to actually turn this on its tail, draw it down on the table. Just underneath the front sight, there's this little cutout circle, which is actually a state pin that holds this muzzle device to your barrel, the rotating bolt. That's what locks it to the top dust cover. Easiest way to get this off is to actually just push down on top, and it'll pop down, and you can slide it out. Good little bump will pull it. Due to carbon grease buildup, the plastic kind of moves around a little bit here in the front, so they can get stuck. Here's your guide rod and your spring. Talking about this dust cover, and that's really what this is. It does hold in the receiver and the barrel assembly, but it acts more like a dust cover. The charge handle is set up very AR style. Even removes the same way as an AR charge handle. It just slips in and out. There are some upgrade metal ones, but even this here is polymer. And that kind of sets off to the side. And now we can talk about the bolt, actually the whole receiver, the barrel assembly, and this front muzzle device, which is the most interesting part of this pistol. But let's get into the receiver. The receiver is all steel. I mean, it's just a big chunk of milled out steel. The extractor is just an enlarged version of a Steyr pistol one. Comes out the same way. Same with your firing pin. It's set here in the back, comes out the same way. So that's really it with this carrier group and everything. The only thing that's really interesting are the actual internals for the rotating barrel assembly, which we'll talk about next. Getting into this, this here is only a 4-inch barrel, or just under 4 inches, depending on where you measure from. But the actual barrel floats inside this flash hiding housing and heat compensator to the front, or a heat sink. This can actually be removed and set up for a 3-lug suppressor version. and that's actually one of the rarest parts to find for these guns. So if you are collecting or into one, or if you happen to come across this after seeing the video, the 3-lug portion to this to run the suppressor, and it is a proprietary suppressor lug mount for these pistols, are one of the rarest parts to find. But the barrel here, like I said, it just rotates in and out. It actually has lugs on it, very similar to an AR bolt, and it just moves back and forth and assists with the, if it was still a machine gun function, but it works kind of like a delayed blowback. It takes a moment for this to cycle backwards, which helps a little bit better in the accuracy for the pistol. With such the trigger pull, the mechanics of this thing, you don't have, it's not an instant blowback like a 1911, you know, or a standard Steyr pistol. This actually takes a minute to unlock and then rotate. But the recoil impulse is very pleasant. I mean, it is a 9mm, it's nothing super harsh, but the way that this is cammed, the weight of all these components, literally these two components weigh more than the rest of the gun, almost as much, or actually into the same realm if you had 30 rounds loaded in the magazine, is what each one of these components weigh. They are not thin by any means. So that gets into the front. The rifling in here is a standard right-handed, like a 5R style rifling. It's not the polygonal or anything, it's just standard rifling, so nothing fancy on that side of it. But as you can see, this barrel of how far it breaks to unlock. When this is locked to the chassis, it goes backwards, opens up, and then goes forward and relocks. So it's kind of interesting that it has, you know, 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch of movement during the cycling process. So your reassembly is really simple, as you saw. You just need to put the barrel in. You may need to time it because you have so much movement around on the rotating bolt. So do make sure you time it to the 12 o'clock position. And then we'll grab the dust cover, line it back up, and then easy with the guide rod, spring in first. You can kind of tilt this out just a little bit. We'll push it down. And then it's all seated back in. Biggest part of reassembly, when you go to remate these two halves, is make sure that the lugs are going together in the front. And then here in the back, you'll actually need to compress the guide rod down just a little bit. And once it sets down, it's clearing the actual latch that mates these two surfaces together. So don't clamp it all the way yet. Go back up here to the front, and it's better to do this even. So, you know, don't stand it up, just put it flat like this. Make sure that these two lugs are compressed down, or hold them down, and then squeeze right in the middle. It'll lock back together. Then once that is done, the rear guide rod assembly is latched into the bottom of the frame. The front lugs are positioning to go between the barrel and the receiver. The way to set this now is to actually just charge it, and it'll actually make a clunk sound, and you know that it's actually locked back together. And that's it. The interesting thing on this particular pistol and the history about them, like I said, in the late 80s, Steyr produced the very first machine pistol. Then they produced, right around 1990, the civilian version. In 2001, Steyr actually sold the rights to this pistol to B&T, and then DSA started to import them. Now in 2000, well, probably like right around 2017, 2018, B&T started just importing themselves or building this particular pistol, which is called the TP9. It actually has a side folding stock and the, very similar to the machine pistol, hand support here in the front. So kind of the way that this thing got sold and moved around to different companies when you come across one. One of the easiest ways to tell for a Steyr is the top rail system here. Normally you could run an optic. It actually has a proprietary rail system. So the B&T actually has a 1913 Picatinny rail, and on the very front, where if it was a Steyr, has your serial number and importation mark. Here, the B&T or the DSA version actually has the Ford hand grip or a location to put one if you wanted it. The side folding stock, the rear tail section is a little bit different also. So those are some of the ways to tell. A lot of people get this gun confused because somebody will take a Steyr and put the B&T dust cover on it to have that Picatinny rail to run an optic, which you can totally interchange the parts. Almost, or right at about 90-95% of the components in this pistol can be interchanged between 3 variants of it, or actually 4, since the 80s to the late 2020s, or this year. If you're catching the video later on, it's 2020. A lot of the components interchange. Just the few key features is basically the lower polymer, the actual grip module system is the biggest difference. But the components for this gun, like I said, they can be interchanged. There are a few things that just will not work, basically being the side folding stock or the arm bar, or the side folding stock or the actual brace system. This pistol was actually designed in the Steyr variant that the rear back here actually has a cutout for a 1-inch shoulder strap or sling system. It was actually a short single point sling that went around your arm that you could actually lock and drive the pistol out to get yourself more stable. That's what they did before they had braces. The B&T version of it is actually, I think, a lot nicer because it actually runs a standard brace, or if you wanted to SBR it, you can actually put their stock variant, which it looks very similar to like a CZ Scorpion. I've seen 1 or 2 that have J hooks or run the Gearhead Works portion, to make a stock for an SBR system. But in reality, playing with this thing and shooting it, like I said, once you get one, it is a unique pistol to shoot. You really think you're more of a video game style or 1980s Miami Vice setup in a movie. The brace system is very interesting. I would like to have a Gearhead Works brace for this particular one, just to get a little bit more stable on it. If you've ever shot a CZ Scorpion, a Mac 11, Mac 10, an Uzi, even like an Uzi style arm support, makes a world of difference in these large single-handed pistols. Like I said, in some of the shooting video you guys have seen, I was trying to run a support hand here on the stop. The biggest thing that I was terrified of is not truly understanding that this was a compensator flash hider and not the barrel. I didn't want to get my hand up here. I didn't want to get it in front, God forbid, to take a muzzle blast, or depending on how hot this would get. And the 150 rounds that I shot, which was kind of consistent, it was probably done over a 30 to 45 minute period. This really didn't heat soak the way I was expecting it to. I was actually more tired from my hand operating the trigger and just loading mags. But if you get onto it and you try to do an AR style thumb over, you end up blocking the sight. If you try to go thumb forward, you're probably going to lose a fingerprint if you try to reach up and grab it like so. The biggest thing for this is to reach up and just run your hand and cup it. Kind of think of the old school revolver shooter days. If you guys have ever seen the old school videos, kind of reminds me of the Barney Fife. Just, reach out, cup. That's how this pistol works to get yourself stable. Probably running the strap would be a lot better in the single hand version and just kind of keeping it rotated. But that's about it. The trigger pull in it, it's heavy and it's long. We'll go ahead and charge it. I'll kind of show you guys. Let's see here. I'm going to pull the mag, drop her down. I'll do it from this thing so you guys can kind of see where it's at. It's got just a little bit of take up, that's fine, but then you hit the wall and you start pulling and pulling and pulling, and I can't even compress it that way. So let's try to get it this way and get some actual leverage on it. There we go. Now, the reset is pretty good. There you go. And for those that like audible resets, this thing has it, and you can hear it when you're shooting. And then it goes back down, and you've still got that 1/4 inch worth of travel before you hit the wall and pull it. But if you get into trying to find the trigger sweet spot on this, it can be done. I did it for about 10 rounds, just got it right there, and it felt really good. But as soon as you take your hand totally out to do a mag change, to find it again, it's got, you know, like a 10-pound trigger in this thing. It's definitely no Steyr pistol or 1911 style, or, you know, system. It's heavy, it's long, and that's what it was designed for. I mean, like I said, this was really designed to get into what I would consider, you know, close quarter, room to room, or boat boarding action is where they really used it. They did not want a soft trigger. They wanted someone to actually think about what they were doing before they pulled the trigger or got it hung up on something. So that's about it. That's kind of the deep dive. Just kind of a tidbit for something very interesting. In doing the dating for this one, as you guys know, Steyr runs a 3-digit alphanumerical stamp date code. They can always be found on your serial number, on your bolt carrier. Your importation stamp marks normally have the date coding. It'll be, like I said, it's alphanumerical. It's just 3, you know, alphabet letters. That correlates back into the Steyr book. Let's give me 1 second. If you've ever taken the Steyr's Armorer's course, or if you've went around through my site, you can actually pull up what the date code is for all the pistols. If you have your Armorer's Guidebook, it will be in pistol page number 45 or number 60. If you guys want to, you can actually find it on my Facebook page. Just go through my pictures. I've put the manufacturer date codes up and everything, but like I said, Steyr sold the patent rights to this pistol in 2001, 2002, and supposedly stopped making this gun. In date coding this one, I found out, and just to kind of give you guys a rundown, it is ADK. So if you guys pull that and look up the date code, or I'm just going to tell you in here, it actually comes into December of 2012. So all the numbers match on this gun. They are all Steyr numbers. It has all the proper markings and everything. This gun actually came pretty much new. I'm waiting on the box to show up because the gentleman I had it forgot to ship it in the actual original box. So I'm waiting to see where that will be at to see if there's any extra paperwork, an extra date code, but I find it very odd that this one actually date codes 2012 when the guns were supposedly stopped produced in 2001, 2002. So that's kind of the interesting little historical tidbit with this one. If you guys happen to know something a little bit more with this or want to see some more time on it, this gun is on loan to me. So I'm going to try it out, play with it, clean it, do some range day time with it, and when it goes back, it goes back. So if you're interested, let me know what you think, and I will give you guys more information or answer any questions. Well, I hope you guys like the new setup of the office, what we're doing, so you can kind of see me, and hopefully it's a better view than just seeing a top view of my hands when I'm pointing stuff out. Alrighty, well, have a good one. Steyr SPP. It's going to be the first mag review on it. We're going to see what she can do. 30 round stick mag. It's a polymer based pistol. This was a special purpose pistol. So first time ever shooting one, literally first mag through it. See what she does.